Welcome to UX Spotlight by Userlytics, the show where UX professionals share the stories and thinking behind digital experience. I'm your new host, Dennis Christia, and today we're exploring how to turn raw answers into insight that actually influence product and business decisions. Our guest today is Vivian Pinto, consumer understanding specialist with over a decade of experience turning data into strategic guidance. Vivian, thank you so much for joining our episode. And let's start with the beginning. How did you first started in this industry?
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. I started in this industry a long time ago, like in 2012, in middleware brand that nowadays is Kantar. I started doing some research, but it was only as a trainee. And after that, I kept on with consumer research in different industries, being an analyst, like leading teams also. So it has been a fun ride. And nowadays, well, I've been also checking some consumer insights, but in social listening, like in the digital side. So yeah, I think that's basically it.
Okay. Well, that's an interesting answer. Thank you. Um, and what keeps you passionate about insights after all these years?
I think it's really fun to know like this truth behind all the data that I find. And it is not only for qualitative data, but also for quantitative. And it really is really amazing to see how all the things that I find, they can really guide decisions for companies. So I think that I feel like kind of a bridge between what people think, because you see it in the numbers, you see it in their interactions, in their qualitative mentions, and then you show that to the company. So I find this link between the two of them, so they both can be like in a win-win situation. So I really find it really fun to tell the company what is working and then like really to transmit that message from the consumer.
That's a very interesting way of putting that. It's like it's like you're interpreting stories that people tell through data.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's like a translation, as you say it.
Perfect. So now that we actually know your story, let's step into how you actually approach insights, right? So, how do you personally define an insight?
Well, I've been in many workshops and read a lot of information about that. And I think that the one that I find it more interesting is to define that as truth, like this revealed truth that you find behind data, and that what is revealed it is a behavior, attention, or any pain that the consumer may have. The most important part is that the industry feels or the company feels inspired to solve that, like to do something about it, to do something about that behavior, to solve that tension or to solve that pain that the consumer can have. So that is what I find that an insight is, and I find it more useful when I am analyzing data.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, you're saying an insight is a clue into how to solve a problem or a pain for a specific target group.
Maybe you don't find the how, but you define the what is the question behind it.
Okay.
What is the
Okay.
tension? What is the pain? What is the behavior that is interesting for you as a company to solve it?
Okay. So, that would be the first step, finding out what the problem is. Okay.
Exactly. The insight is like that problem. And then it inspires you to take action to use that information, yeah, to solve that tension, to do something about that behavior that you found. But maybe the behavior is not exactly there in your insight. What you are like looking for here is what is going on. You need to find out what is happening, and that is what the insight gives you. That is why sometimes it is not only like a percentage, because sometimes you see insight and you see this percentage. These people, I don't know, 80% eat meat, something like that. That is not exactly the insight. the insight goes after that. Is they eat meat, but what is the implication of that? Now, like they eat meat, but they wish it was healthier. Or yeah, for example, for vegans. I'm just making this up right now, but 80% will they enjoy eating vegetables, but they will like them to taste like meat. Yeah, there is a tension there. There are two facts there, and then like the connection is that there is a tension that you can solve. Yeah. So it is something like that. Or for example, and if you don't have percentages, then you have mentions. And in the mentions, sometimes I've seen that there are some insights that are like the mention, or like one mention, like someone that says something. That is not mainly your insight, but you have to go behind that, see a lot of mentions, what you find in common, and after that you take that insight. Yeah.
Okay. So it's somehow diving a bit deeper, going behind the veil of
Exactly.
what's in front of you.
Exactly.
And it's very interesting that you mentioned the mentions, um, because I'm very curious to know when you receive data, so mentions, percentages, dashboards, for example, what's the first thing you look for?
Well, I think that first and foremost, and I do that also with my teams of analysts, is that you need to have the objective in mind. Like what is you're going to find, and then you open like this space in your mind because you are going to focus only on that objective. You're going to see that context. Like you are not going to put your own opinions right away. No, you're going like to create a blank space so you can fill it after you find some kind of answer. So you have this blank space, and then my next step normally is to see what data do I have. Maybe like to yeah, like have all this sense of what is the data that the variables that I have, what are the questions that I ask. Like I see what my tools are or my pieces, and then I like compare them between among them, and then, for example, when you're solving a puzzle and you have all these different pieces and you start to find different patterns between them. Yeah, like for example, in mentions, you have an open-ended question and you have a lot of mentions. Then you start like joining them together to see what like kind of clusters you can find. And then, for example, yeah, like in a puzzle, here you have all the green pieces and then all the blue pieces and then all the like that. There are houses here. There's a sky here. And then when you have these kind of clusters or you have them like sorted out, then you join them. And it is like, or you see inside of them, what is going on here? Oh, this is interesting. This wasn't a house after all. It was a cat, something like that. Or you solve each of them. And when you are solving them, that is where you find the insight. It can be inside a cluster or it can be between clusters, and you analyze and you put like your human side and you say, does this make sense? Is this interesting? Like, and this is the insight. Because you feel that you need to do something about it, or you have like that aha moment that they call sometimes, and you are like, oh, okay, wow, I didn't know this, or okay, this takes me to do something about it, to solve it. An example. Let's put it, for example, I don't know, the objective. You are going to find, or your client needs to find better solutions for the elderly in a retirement house. That is the objective. Then what you have is that you did a qualitative study or you have some mentions, a lot of mentions from the elderly. Then you join the clusters and you see that one of the topics is I don't know, maybe related to decision making. So you join everything that has to do with decision making. You have other clusters, but here you have one that is decision making. And when you see inside of it, you see some mentions and you see some like behaviors or mentions, like verbatims from them, and then you find that there is a need for independence, because what you're reading, oh, I wish I could do this by my own, or something like that, like many times, and you say like, okay, there is a need for independence here, but there is also fixed like routine in their daily lives, because they have to do some kind of specific exercises, and they have some medicine regimens that they have to follow. So this is your insight: is how can I find, or there is a need for independence within the restricted routine, and you think, how can I find some own decision making inside this routine? Yeah. So it is something like that. It is that final part is when you say, oh, okay, we need to do something about it. There is a pain here. You find that tension. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like your it makes a lot of sense. I like your analogy about the puzzle because you have all these pieces thrown together and they're all random and you cannot make anything of it, but you somehow have to put them together and connect the dots to get the actual insight what you need to actually make, the solution.
Exactly. And there are many tools that you can use. There are some qualitative tools. I know them. I'm not like really focused on the qualitative side, but I know that exist. And for example, for my exercises in analyzing quantitative data mainly, what I do is I do the same, but with the different variables and sites of data that I have, or kinds of data that I have. So I don't know, maybe to go really back in time, like it is something like, for example, what like this famous exercise that they did for cross-selling, that they needed to understand what like products could go together so they can increase sales. So for example, you go and see, you have your team for raw data and for this kind of analysis, and they find something weird that is like something out of it is not the norm. That you find that people are buying diapers and at the same time beer. So what is going on there? They found out that this behavior was mainly done by male people who were young people as well, and they did it mostly on Fridays. So this can come from your data as well, because you can track that. But then they were like, okay, this is kind of an insight, it's really interesting, but what do we need to do to understand why are they doing that? Yeah, like the whys, what is going on there? And they did another research to find out what was going on. So they found that most of them were people that were working in offices, and on Fridays they like were asked by their wives to go for the diapers for the babies. They had babies. And also at the same time as the weekend was coming, where they bought their beers.
Yeah.
So this was in Walmart actually. And when they got this, they said, like, they got this insight, like, okay, uh, there is a cross selling that we hadn't found here before. We found out what was the behavior about. So how are we going to solve that? How can we provide easy access to diapers and beer for young fathers, you know? So they came out with a solution. I mean, the insight was before. This was the behavior, the interesting side, the deep information about it. And what they did was to apply some proximity law. After that, they started to put in near alleys the diapers and the beer together. Now, so it's kind of crazy, because your first part is not only what you found. No, it's like maybe there is a descriptive insight when you get to diapers and beers together. But then what is there, that is when you can find something else. Why are they doing that? When are they doing that? That is where the real insight and actionable comes. I don't know if I made myself clear.
No, um, you did, and it's very interesting that when you're going into this, you don't know what you're gonna find. Not at all. So if you would have told me that you're doing a study involving diapers, but then there's a beer element to it as well, um, I would think either something went wrong with the study or there has to be something wrong. But no, um, it's you find different things that you would have not expect. So
Exactly.
that's something very interesting about this.
Exactly.
Um,
That is why you need to have a clear mind at the beginning. You have your objective, but you have a clear mind. You free space in your mind to fill it with anything that comes out.
so you cannot start with biases.
Yes, exactly. I mean, sometimes you can have hypotheses, but
Hmm.
you cannot let that to bias
If
your own analysis.
it makes sense. And when you're doing research like this, what are some common mistakes teams make when interpreting results?
Okay, well, I think that, for example, getting biases, that is definitely something. Like getting to just one number and then saying that that number is the insight and that's it. I mean, we are all the time hearing about insights, and that is what happens. But the real good stuff is deeper. I think that sometimes what researchers, sometimes because of time or because they don't have enough data, maybe they rush to conclusions. So maybe it's just like to relax a little bit and dig deeper. And I think those are the most common mistakes. Yeah, like to have these kind of biases and to go and not to go deeper.
Amazing. And now that we kind of dive into what an insight is and where to look for it, um, which data resources tools do you rely on the most? And perhaps you can explain that why.
Okay, well, there are many kinds of research, as you know. Mm, right now, what I use more is social listening because that is where I work, right? It is like I am in the last 2 years or 3 years, I've been working in the digital side, in digital marketing. So in my consumer research, like when I need to find some kind of insights in the broad way of saying that, I use social listening. It gives you, for example, a Sprinklr. It gives you a lot of mentions, and what you do is to tell them find for these keywords, and then it takes out a lot of mentions in dashboards. But then what I do is like to take out that those all the things that I have, like all the different variables that I have, and I find relations between them. But I don't stay there because there are so many tools right now, and there are, for example, some studies, really interesting studies, like very similar to what the panels of consumer of Kantar and Ipsos do. So I also try to get this kind of information. Maybe if my company or if the company that I'm working for doesn't have this kind of information, I've been using, for example, Global Web Index. I don't know if you've heard of it, but what it does is to give you um, consumer insights. That means that there are a series of questions that are asked every 3 months, I think. And with this information, it is like raw information where they say this is what people are consuming and in different ages and in different places and things like that. So I take out the variables also from there. And also I've used a lot Perplexity right now. Like in my most recent studies, I love that Perplexity gives me really trustable sources. So I get what I get from Sprinklr, and what I get from GWI, and then what I get from Perplexity, and then I find some kind of insight there, mixed insight there. Like, for example, I don't know, maybe from Sprinklr, I have seen that towards a topic, people show negative sentiment. Maybe a sentiment like ultra processed food. So they fear ultra processed food. There is a lot of negative sentiment, 70%, 80% is negative conversation. That is one part. Then what I see in a study that Perplexity brought to me is that 80% of people are still buying them. And they are prioritizing maybe taste. So I am seeing that here, regardless of the fear that they fear, 80% of homes are still buying ultra-processed food due to indulgence reasons. So what can I do? Because I found that there. What can I do to give them like these indulgent products, but avoiding that they fear them? Like, how can I do delicious, healthy products, for example? So that is something interesting that you find, because the conclusion there is not that you need to avoid ultra-processed foods at all, because that is just one part of the finding. No, you need to give them something to solve that. So it needs to be something delicious but healthy at the same time. Yep.
It's wait, I found something very interesting that you mentioned in this, because I assume when you're doing research like this, when you're using tools, you have to assume, or you have to use tools that will give you true information. You cannot work on false information. And I like the fact that you mentioned Perplexity, because well, I also found this about Perplexity. It's when you're using different AI tools to do research, for example, a lot of the AIs out there, for example, ChatGPT from OpenAI or Gemini from Google, they've been caught to make up information, to lie, just so they can sell you whatever you want to hear. But Perplexity, it's one of the best tools out there that gives you raw research information. And it's the best one for this. I've heard the same thing, so it's interesting that more people think this.
Yes, exactly. And then that is something that you can keep in mind, because it is going to give you broader insights. But many times companies want to know specific things about their own targets, and that not necessarily is going to be out there. Yeah, unless you find like a study that goes exactly to your target and asks exactly what you wanted to know, well, it won't work for that. So it can like give you hypotheses, it can give you like general behaviors, it can reveal some general tensions. But if you need something specific, if you already have a hypothesis and you need to get a conclusion from it, that is when it is better to have a customized study, like Userlytics, for example. That is when you need to go and say, I need to evaluate this material. I need to see if this banner works. I need to see if it's something more specific. That is when you need to go to customized studies. Or I used to also, nowadays I think about that also, that a specific study gives me the right answers that I need to know, like the more specific answers that I need to know, because it gives you more control over the target you are reaching. It gives you more control over the questions that you're going to ask. You know what are the questions, and then it gives you more control on the results, because you know that the results will tell you about those questions that you asked before. So if you have a specific objective, maybe the best thing is to go to customized studies.
Yeah. No, I think that's very true because you ultimately target humans. You target your customer base, and obviously need to, in order to tailor the product or service for them in a better way, you have to get insights from them directly, from the actual customers, humans that you're selling this to. And very often AI cannot do this, so you need a company like Userlytics to come in and provide you with these services.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. I agree. Yeah, that is why I prefer, well, the social listening sometimes when I have some like broader aspects to see, like I don't know what I'm still going to find. And then I like more customized studies for when I have specific questions to solve.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. But I want to stay on this topic just a bit more, um, and slightly moving it a bit towards the AI, because as we know, this is the next revolution of our lifetime, the creation of AI, and these tools increasingly involve AI. So let's talk about that. Um, how has AI changed the way you analyze data, for example?
Well, AI has definitely helped me a lot because, for example, in Sprinklr that I mentioned earlier, they are incorporating some AI. And this is not only for the main like objectives that they had before. That was, for example, the sentiment classification or the topics classification. That is, it was really hard before to do that. It took a lot of time, and now it's getting better and better. It is not 100% accurate because the algorithm is still learning, and that's perfect. But now I have that already. I know like right away the sentiment that I have, and I have the topics. But also they're incorporating some like descriptive insights in every of the widgets that they find. So for example, if I have a widget for the sentiment, I get right away some findings that say this is what happened. Like, for example, 80% it has negative or shows negative sentiment. And then this is the mention that you can see was like more frequent, or some kind of those insights, like descriptive insights. So I don't have to go and see what happened, not necessarily as much as I had to do before, because I have the information now. So it has helped a lot. And then what I do is to take these insights and compare them with these other descriptive ones now. That is not like the insight that I was telling you about. But I find, like, let's call them these behaviors. And then I see what are the relations between them. And it is yeah, it is quite easier right now. And also, what I have found is that Perplexity, for example, really saves a lot of time in doing, for example, desk research or finding some secondary sources. Because what I need to do is not trust in them. I think that was that is another mistake that some researchers do, or some people in general, that you trust right away what the AI is saying, but that is where your human touch goes, and or is necessary, and you need to check on which are the sources, and that is where you find that some things don't have a source. And it is not necessarily wrong, because it took it out from somewhere. It learned it from somewhere because it is in the data that, yeah, it should be somewhere, but not in the way that you want it, because you need to check if your sources are not like true, or they don't have the trust that you want. Well, it's better not to use them. So that is why it has helped a lot, because it gives me like a role of revising, a role of putting like in my human side, just to say that. And it helps with all this logistic part maybe that I had before, and then it gives me like right away something to work with. Yeah. So it has helped a lot.
That's interesting. You mentioned that you have to trust but verify somehow the information. I'm guilty myself of that as well. In the previous years of my college, my university, I used to copy paste a lot with AI, and very often I was caught like, this is not even true. This information is not even real. Where did you get this from? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah,
um,
that is why maybe you can use it won't like solve that 100%, but in the prompting always use avoid digital hallucination.
okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah. It
Okay.
won't solve it 100 as they say, but it can like help a bit.
No, I learned from this whenever I need something very important, I ask it, is this true? Is this verified? Can you verify if this is true or did you make this up? And then you'll say you made it up or not. But Perplexity is a good way to minimize that as much as possible. And staying on this topic of AI,
Yeah.
seeing as it evolves and it advances very rapidly, and the next years are anticipated to be just an incredible boom. Where do you still see the irreplaceable role of humans in the insight process?
I think that in the last part, because right now you can have like these quick descriptive insights. Like we can, I can see what behaviors only, but understood like trends. Yeah, what trends are going on, like upward, downward, things like that. I can see where they are coming from. But then what that means for the company, I think that I still need to do it as a human. And maybe even just to use it also in the prompting, as you said, like, okay, what does this mean for the company? Or things like that. But I still need to do the questions. I still need to revise the analysis, and I still need to see how they relate with each other. Like there are sometimes that when I need to do like some writing that really needs to be really impactful, I take one AI and then I put it in another AI, and then between AIs they talk to each other, and that is why because I put them together.
Yeah,
So I think that is where it is going, and also I see AI like another companion of mine, like someone who has a lot more information. So it is like a conversation with that, with it. Yeah. It is like he's going or she's going to tell me something, and then I need to see if that works for me or if I need more or if I need to go somewhere else. So I think that is what I need to do as a human, like to verify, to summarize, to ask for the right questions, to get the right analysis, because it can do a lot of things. It's a really cool companion because it really knows a lot of stuff. But what I need to do is to like organize what that person, that, well, AI is going to give me, and and I need to question that. So I think that is why I need that. I need to program that. Maybe yeah, like in the deeper that data, like in data teams, they need to do that. Is that is seeing what how it's going to work for you, and what are you going to use, and what do you need to double check. Like, I don't know, for example, how does it really work for you? I think that is what you need to do with AI. It will change all the time. For example, we've been talking to some colleagues, and we think that in the future maybe we will not do the queries as we were doing them before, that was asking them for keywords, but the AI will also find that in videos, in audios. It will go into podcasts because it can go for those mentions also, not in the written part of that, but in the others, in all the audios, in all the videos. So maybe it's going to be something different. Maybe it's going to be like when you search for something, like I need to know what is going on, instead of saying look for this word and this word and this word, and it will do something different. But we need to keep also up to date. Yeah, like it is to how am I going to use that companion, and what parts can I trust, and how can I relate one with another, and how does it help me in my own like day to day, in my own work, like in for example, LinkedIn. It is going to take off some time for people who are looking for jobs because of this feature that they have that joins your what everything that you have on your LinkedIn with the job position, with the description of the role. That takes a lot of time. So that is how it works for me. But maybe it doesn't work for people who already have a job and are not looking for something. So what really does for you, what really works for you and what doesn't?
That's very well put. So it can help you in multiple ways. It depends what you're looking for.
Yes.
But it's still there to just aid you. It's still there to just be a tool that you can use to make your work easier. But it cannot replace your actual insight and your actual decision making process that you have as a human.
Yeah, unless you're using it and you, I don't know, maybe you programmed something to give you something specific that you needed and you see that it is working. So, okay, let's leave it there. It's going to be a tool. And I don't know, maybe I used it as an automation tool. And I see that what is giving me, it's okay. Okay, let's trust that. But you need to see or look for the time when it is not working. Maybe it is saying some things that don't make sense to you. That is when you need to adjust something or things like that. Like not trusting all the time 100%. Like always be aware of what is going on, right? That is what I believe.
Amazing,
Yeah.
amazing. And now that we talked a bit about how you can use AI to analyze data and how we can still not replace the role of humans in the insight process, the next challenge is turning the actual insights into action. And on that note, I want to ask you, what does it take for an insight to actually influence a business decision in your experience?
Well, I have changed in many ways my insights. I mean, before I didn't have AI now, and when I first started, it was mainly questions. I think that maybe even when I worked at first, there were still paper questionnaires. So it's been a long journey, but I have always seen that when the insight inspires you to take action, in regardless of the methodology that you're using AI, you're mixing it with questionnaires or any sources. If you are solving the question, if you are showing up with an interesting behavior and you have the data to to back it up, um, decisions can be made in the company and it can have an impact. When the research question that you're looking for in the research that you're doing, any kind of research, if it is only in social listening or in a customized study, if you're solving the question, it will have an impact in the company. That is really like your main goal here. If your insight is solving the question, it is giving you some like ideas to where to go to, like it is revealing some tension that you need to solve. It is answering what you need, it will have an impact. Sometimes when you're talking about the ROA, well, that is something that you need to include in your analysis. Some other times when it is, I don't know, something like the banner that you're going to choose, which one works better, and you have the all the whys behind that. Maybe we should use this because it has this and this, and the other one we shouldn't use that because there is a risk here. Then it has an impact. So as long as you focus on the question, and that is why that is the first part that I say always to my analysts, and well, when I do analysis as well, is if I have it in mind and if it really inspires the company or the industry or your client to do something, it will have an impact. And also what you need to do is to show it in a good storytelling. Nowadays, that has changed a bit. Storytelling has always been really important, but nowadays, many people need answers right away. So you need to sometimes you need to start with the answer to the question, or sometimes you need to give in your storytelling more context first, and to take that person to think, to get that conclusion. It really depends on your audience, but the interesting part is that it needs to solve the question to guide the action.
Okay. So it's not just enough to be an insight because, well, a lot of things can be insights, but it need to actually solve something that you're looking to solve.
Yes, it really depends on your objective.
Perfect. And now we're coming to my favorite part of the episode. And to wrap things up, let's switch gears and get into the quickfire round.
Okay.
Are you ready, Vivian?
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
So, in this quickfire round, just a quick recap. I'm going to ask you a few questions, and you get 1 minute per each question to answer. And you can say whatever pops up first in your mind. There's no wrong or right answer. It's just to kind of show the audience different perspective over these questions.
Okay.
So, are you ready?
Yeah, shoot.
Let's start. Come on. First question. Favorite part of the research process?
Oof, when the insight is revealed.
Okay. Biggest lesson from a failed study?
Oof, I think not having enough clarity towards the objective. Yeah.
Okay. Favorite AI tool right now?
Definitely Perplexity.
I was expecting that one.
Yeah.
And one thing researchers should do more often?
Oh, maybe always keep in mind empathy.
Empathy.
Yeah.
Okay. For you researchers out there, empathy, keep in mind. And one thing they should do less often?
Going to the answers right away. Like a percentage is an answer and that's it.
Okay. Okay. So not being open-minded, practically.
Yeah, like that.
Okay. Great answers. And it was very quick. It was the quickest round fire. Amazing. And let's finish with one strong takeaway for the listeners out there. What is one actionable tip that researchers can apply today to turn answers into real insights?
Maybe, for example, use AI to accompany the process, not to be the whole process. Maybe to translate insights into language that can promote business action. And to, I think, also remain curious and open to new findings, new tech tools, always keep up to date, because that is what is needed nowadays. Like Perplexity, there will be something else tomorrow, so we always have to be keeping up to date.
That's very true.
Yeah.
And before we close, I want to tell the listeners out there where they can find you, Vivian.
Oh, okay, great. On LinkedIn, I am as Vivian Pinto. And that's it, yeah. Just feel really free to reach out and we can just connect there.
Amazing. Thank you very much. And as well, if you're looking for more UX content, don't forget to follow us, Userlytics, on social media, on our Instagram, X, and LinkedIn account as well. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel where we post exclusive content, so you don't want to miss that. And also, don't forget to follow our podcast, and we'll be publishing one new episode each month from now on, so stay tuned to that one. Thanks a lot for listening to the new season of UX Spotlight, and remember, research isn't just about gathering answers, it's about uncovering insights that move your business forward. Thank you so much, Vivian, and
Thank
to all
you.
of you, have a great day.
Bye bye.